Good afternoon and welcome to the first event of its kind in AUK. We thank our guest speakers for being here today to share with students their life experiences and journey to the success. The purpose of the Tribune is to bring together successful young Kosovars who have achieved great success through their professional career. Through this panel, we aim to bring students closer to real-life challenges and real-life knowledge derived from challenges that the panelists went through. To reach successful stages in life and great achievements, many barriers and challenges must be faced. We have to learn from those who have already passed them. Allow me to briefly read the biographies of already well-known to most of us, our guests. We'll start with Professor Venera Demukai, who is a AOK lecturer here, professor in economics. She received her PhD from the School of International Studies, University of Trento in June 2011, with a dissertation on aid effectiveness in post-conflict countries. She has detained master's degree in International and Development Economics from University of Applied Sciences in Berlin. Currently, she is a professor at AOK and the head of Economics Unit. Mr. Diip. He has a master's degree in business administration in University of Florida, founder and the managing partner of Management and Development Associates. Professor Kurapsi Dio. He has a doctorate degree from Widner University in Delaware, USA. He received his attorney licenses in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. He lectures in University of Pristina and AAB. He was a legal advisor for the President of Republic of Kosovo. Chandrin Gashi. He has a PhD and a master's degree from University of Chicago and a Master of Advanced Studies from University of Cambridge. He is an associate professor of mathematics at University of Pristina, and also he is in the board of directors of ProCredit Bank. Last but not least, Professor Valentina Kraja. She is also professor at AUK. She has a master's degree in political science at Yale University, and she is also legal advisor to the President of Republic of Kosovo. The areas of discussion by our guests will include personal stories of success, the key factors of success as they see them, and of course, beside hard working, that I think we already know it. The opportunities for coming students to have achieved more than they even dream about, and most important of all, why they have chose to come back in our motherland. We now leave the stage for Professor Demukai to be as the first speaker.
Thank you, Kreshnik. Thanks to the student government for inviting me. So this time I'm not going to talk to you about David Ricardo, Amartya Sen or Paul Collier. This time I'll try to share my experiences with you, but that's actually even a more difficult task to perform because I'm not used to talk to you about what I've achieved or what I've done. So actually this is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my experiences, what I've learned while I was doing what I was doing, pursuing my graduate studies and postgraduate studies. We've discussed even, during the classes, after the class with students, and I see that most of you have so many dreams and wish of going and studying abroad, living abroad, and what are the opportunities for you nowadays. And sometimes we try to reflect, and you ask me about my own experiences. So I guess now we even have a group and we can discuss even more about this. So I'll start with the first issue that has to do with you studying and pursuing your studies abroad by comparing the situation that was back then, like 10, 12 years ago when I started studying abroad and the opportunities you have nowadays. Some of you might say that now it's more difficult for you to compete and have, let's say, a scholarship because now there's plenty of you applying for these scholarships, whereas at that time we've discussed with students that maybe we're here because there weren't many people that were aiming at going abroad and studying abroad, so maybe we were in a comparative advantage, if I can say like that, and that's why we're here. But apart from, let's say, maybe the comparative advantage that we were many, we also face challenges that you do not face them nowadays. Maybe let's use a bit of economics. Information asymmetry. Back then, not many people could learn foreign languages and use internet to know where the potentials and where the opportunities to study abroad were. So actually we weren't in a very, let's say, good position to find these places and actually apply for scholarships. Whereas nowadays you all can speak different foreign languages, and there are plenty of opportunities for you now through different kind of programs and scholarships, such as your Young Cell Scheme, through British Council, KF. I know so many of these scholarship funds and programs that I'm writing all the time letters of reference for my students that are going there and studying. And actually, sometimes I'm even, I'm happy for them, but I'm also envious about their plenty and so many opportunities. So yes, we've had our opportunities, but now you have more opportunities in terms of, let's say, the pool of the programs and scholarships that you've got. So you should be proud of that, and you should be happy about all these things that are waiting for you there. Now, let's say you're applying and you get a scholarship and you're going to study abroad. Based on my experience, that is going to be one of the most beautiful times of your lives. The most exciting and challenging periods you're going to go through. Because you will start to learn about things you like to learn. You chose a program because you liked it. And so if you go to study international relations or development economics, you're studying it because you like it. And on top of that, you got a scholarship. So someone is giving you money to study for things you really like and you want to become, let's say, a well-known specialist on that area. Besides that, you get to know people from all over the world, and you get to have friends that are going to, maybe some of them stay friends forever, for the rest of your life. So if you go to foreign countries, that means you all the time will have a house or a person there that will be there for you. So that is very, very important for you and your future careers and your future life. Besides that, you also learn about different cultures. You might also have the chance or opportunity to learn different languages. In my case, when I went to study to Germany, I had no clue about German language because the program I was going to study to was taught entirely in English. So, because I got the scholarship, and within that scholarship in the package was also the courses of the German language, I was lucky enough to, on top of getting a degree, also learn German language. So that's why I'm telling you these are those periods of life that we, all the time when we think of them, these are very, very good times. But that's not the end of it, because with all these beautiful and, let's say, exciting things come also some challenges and difficult periods that you're going to go through. Starting from the issue or problems dealing with bureaucracies of different countries. When I applied once for a visa, I got a scholarship and I was going to study abroad. That was January, like 10 years ago, and it happened to be the coldest day of the year. I waited for 4 hours to just go for an interview and, give my documents in to get the visa. So that was, an experience I haven't gone through before, because I thought I got the scholarship and, everything taken for granted, I'll get my visa like in a half an hour, but that wasn't the case, because dozens of people were waiting outside and I was waiting with them too. So after 4 hours, I went back to the place where I was working, and almost I was bursting into tears, because I felt very kind of, that wasn't something maybe I deserved, but that's okay. Then you realize that that's part of the life, and that's part of the game. You cannot get stronger and you cannot grow mature if you do not go through these things. So that is one thing that you realize, that even if you get a scholarship, it's not that easy for you to get things in life. Another thing, which is a challenge for you, you get to learn about different cultures and attitudes of the professors. Maybe it's the education system here in Kosovo that teaches us not to be very critical or to take critics very close to the heart. When you start studying abroad and dealing with different attitudes and professors, you get used to getting these kind of critiques. Once I was giving a presentation while I was studying, and I really like to present, so I was kind of lost while presenting, and the professor stops me in a very kind of, I don't know, I thought it was rude, but that was how their attitude is, and told me, "Are you wearing a watch with you? I mean, you see you have exceeded your time." So, you know, these things start happening to you and you get used to it. Again, don't worry. It's okay. That's part of the game and part of the process. You'll get to become very strong and very robust, and this is how you will grow mature while you go through these kind of, let's say, experiences and dealing with different cultures and different people. And actually, these things make you stronger. And you keep telling to yourself, well, while I'm going to go back home, I'm going to use all the knowledge and tell to these people outside that actually my country is worth something and my country is going to become a leader and I'm going to be part of that. So this is one kind of motivation that makes you think all the time that you have to be going back and you have to contribute to your own country. I think I've shared this with one of my students, Rinar is here. When I started to study the first class in development economics, I read about South Korean case and the development miracle of South Korea. And, you know, as a young and enthusiastic as I was, I thought, well, I found it, that's a panacea. I know what's the formula for my country to develop. I'm just going to go back home and tell them how they did it, and we're going to do that too. And you again realize that as a part of the game that the picture is not that simple and things, you know, aren't as black and white as we see. But still, you know, you get to learn about, through all these things, and you see that how difficult sometimes is to materialize and implement things. But that having said, does not mean that we have to give up. We face social and economic problems and challenges, and we have problems every day. But for myself, I've told this to my students, I forget all of them when I enter into the classroom. So that is my main motivation for why I have come back to Kosovo and why I'm happy I'm here and I'm not elsewhere. Although maybe we might have had the chances to stay and work elsewhere. So it's staying with you people, teaching you people, writing letters of references for you and receiving every now and then some emails telling me that actually what I learned from you was very useful, and actually I'm going to write on my thesis on this topic because I really liked it when we discussed it during the development class. So this is the reward we get why we come back and we decide to be part of all these problems, economic, social and political problems. Also, what is, I think, important, you should keep it in your mind, we have to work on improving and establishing the image of our country. So while you're studying abroad, you can also see yourself as being in a mission. That mission would be study hard, work hard, and give a very good image of your own country. Because while you're out there, you are the ambassadors of our own country. So let's say perform your role while you're there and then come back and give the best in building this society. I'll stop here and I'll be happy to discuss further questions or comments if you have, or any, I don't know, burning questions that might come to your mind related to our experiences.
We thank Professor Demukai, and for all of you who are curious, in the end we have reserved the time for making questions and replies, so don't worry, you'll have the chance to ask questions. We now continue with Mr. Diip, who, I'm repeating it, is the co-founder and managing partner of Management and Development Associates. For all of you who wants to become managers in the future, he is the right person to listen to and have a coffee. And especially, I have again the honor and the pleasure to listen to him about speaking about the values that are even for my opinion, the crucial factor for success.
Thank you, Virginia. Those are very kind words. I can always come back to any class in the future. It was a good experience for me as well. Well, I have a lot of stories to tell, although I don't look that old. I've experienced quite a lot. One thing that I've learned from living in US and getting some education there and experience is that never say never. Keep this in mind. In '94, when we had really some big problems here, when I had to go to the makeshift school in Vranjevc, in this house, and walk for an hour to go there, and hide books under my jacket, so police don't stop us and interrogate us and beat us. That's where I really found my way out of Kosovo. And I say it like that because I really was very disappointed and demotivated and quite depressed actually, because I saw absolutely no future. Basically, I met this American couple in Urpiona, and by absolute coincidence, and a month after, they actually sent me an invitation, and I got the visa, and I was on my way out. As I was leaving the border of Vojvodina to go to Budapest, the soldier there told me, "Where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to US to continue my high school." I was in third year of high school. And he said, "Why do you go to high school? You don't need to get educated. You Albanians, Shqiptari," was actually the word he used, which is a bit of a demeaning word for the Albanian, for those who don't speak Albanian. Anyways, I was out, and I went to a high school which had 3 or 4 soccer stadiums, an inside pool. I don't know, it was like a complete fairy tale for me at that time. That's when I knew that a lot of people there took a lot of things for granted. And that's where I can see today as well. Many of you are in this building, albeit it's a relatively good building and relatively good conditions, and you should really not take them for granted, because I mean, I come from the generation where basically we had no hope. Now you can ask what is different back then from now, is expect some materialistic things being better. And here actually I also think that you have an advantage. We are a relatively young country with you know, a class of politicians who in most cases have no clue what should happen next year, let alone in the next 10 years. Let's say by 2020, how should this country look like? Where should be the economy based on? What sectors? Whether we will continue to listen to these problems we listen to every day, or will we have some, you know, sustainable development in those years, in coming years? And I think this is where your advantage lies. You are being educated, and I think you can become part of this system building to set the pathway for future generations to really look back and say thank to you, give thanks to you, because you have invested your time, your knowledge, and yourselves into building this new country. I am a strong believer in what you can do for your country and not the other way around. And that is something that has been installed in myself from living in US, not from living in Kosovo. They don't teach that actually in Kosovo that much. So basically you have a great opportunity, and you should think when you become older and you look back, what have you done with your life? Did you have a 20-year or 30-year very lucrative, very self-fulfilling, professional and personally experience? Or did you have a 1-year experience repeated 30 times? Which is the case with a lot of managers, a lot of people here in Kosovo, which I also get to interact with either via projects or in personal basis. So it's a different system. It was a system that was not based on performance. Now we would like to move into a system which is based on performance. You measure the results. Which brings me to my company. We started MDA in 2001. We are currently 35 full-time staff there, and we have about 60 experts engaged in various projects. Our turnover last year was 1.9 million. The year before was 2.4. So in average it was 1.5 million in the last 4 or 5 years, which is a pretty good, relatively good turnover for a consulting company in this market. We have been sort of in the right place at the right time, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for many people to go into the consulting business still. With all these developmental needs that we have, an economy which is almost completely trade-based, and we should try to turn that around and make it production or industrial-based, so we can have that employment, that sustainable employment and development. So basically, the company we created, it's now considered to be one of the premier consulting companies in Kosovo. But it was not a particular set of skills that made it successful. I think what we learned from US, from us living in US, there I finished high school through MBA, it was the values, it was the organizational and family culture overall. Basically in US, for those that have been or have lived there, people give you the benefit of the doubt at the start. If you want to work with someone as a partner, as a employer, employee, whatever the relationship is, they will give you the benefit of the doubt because this is how they are taught from childhood. And that trust, which is built right at the forefront, enables people to be more transparent and to give more from themselves to whatever they're doing. How many of you would like to be employed in the public sector after you finish your education here? Just raise your hand. Private sector? Okay, well, I like it. I like it. It's actually the mathematician whiz says most of you don't want to get employed. That's very, very true because many. I'm glad to see this actually because obviously that tells you that there is an entrepreneurship spirit amongst you, which I like very much. Basically, it's again going back to the organizational culture. At MDA, I believe we have developed some very strong organizational culture, which was based on some values that we brought. I'm talking organizational values because family values were given to me by my parents here, and I think we have one of the most strongest family structures anywhere. And this is one of our advantages that basically, in a way, reflects onto work as well. Integrity is the #1 sort of success factor in business, and I believe that integrity is passed on to us by our parents, by the way that we are raised in this context, in the Kosovo context. But the organizational culture is another thing where, you know, again, you have this open and very true teamwork where you can speak very frankly to anyone without that person taking it personally. If you are criticizing them, you are criticizing them on a constructive manner. And this is the, basically the culture that has prevailed in our company since its beginning. And any time that we have seen, I and my other two partners, one of the partners is actually a professor here, an instructor, Aryan Nashari. That has enabled us to grow very organically, if you will, and year by year improve in terms of revenue, in terms of employee number, in terms of projects we manage. So basically, I cannot say that there is one specific answer to a specific situation because I think everything is relative. And remember, never say never. You just need to find a drive within yourselves and keep that in mind that you would like to be counted for something. You would not want to finish your school here and get a job and wait for that salary at the end of the month. Even if it is a salary-based job, you would like to know that your job is making an impact on the community that you live. And for me, I could have stayed in US. I could have worked, and actually, in fact, I worked in the banking sector. In the banking sector there, but to me, it's far more fulfilling, professional and personally, because I am a Kosovar, to be here and contribute to the development of this place. Otherwise, we've had quite a lot of AUK students working as interns, who started working as interns, then moved on and worked on projects, managing projects. Some of them have moved on to finish master's degrees. Many of them have actually moved on to other advisory positions within the government. And I don't ever try to see the situation as black and white. Oh, the government is bad, you know, or vice versa, the private sector is really bad. Try to avoid generalizing people and situations. You have good people in the government as well. You do. People who work hard every day. They may do all the right things, but they may just not have the skills to do the things right. Oh, these are two different things. And I think it's a continuous process. More people get educated, more people are aware of what their input should be in the society, better the government will be, smaller the government will be, and bigger the private sector will be, which I think is everywhere, but it should also be here. The private sector should be the backbone of the economy. Right now, it's an open field. You can pick any industry, any sector. You can also go in the public sector. Anywhere you go, there is evident needs for improvement. So in terms of being an interesting sort of prospective career, I think you here are kind of lucky in comparison to people in US, let's say, or elsewhere in developed countries, because they already have that system. You become, you just become part of the system, and you have this daily routine, which I also didn't like when I was living in the US. And here you can try new things, you can build things, which makes me happy. Doesn't mean it will make you happy. It depends on your character. It depends on what you want in your life, what you want to achieve. Reflect. Use your time to reflect on what you want. I also agree with Venera. That it's always. I see a lot of people finishing undergraduate studies and then rushing to get the masters. I am very against that. Try your desires a little bit for a few years. Go to work for someone. See where you're good at. Someone may be good in strategic type work. Someone may be good in operations, in marketing, in finance, in legal, in exact sciences. It doesn't really matter. It's just that you need to give yourself 3-4 years before you decide on what graduate level education you can continue. And I'll close with this next statement. I'm also the co-chair of Kosovo American Education Fund, which, as you may have heard, provides scholarships to people to go to US, about 7 to 8 candidates each year. And I think it's a very good opportunity. USAID gave that initial seed money for that fund, and they cover everything. They try to place you in very good universities. If you know in advance what you want to study and you do some homework before or during the application for the scholarship, then you can also determine your fate or your luck where they will place you in what university. And I think it's a great opportunity. It's absolutely a great opportunity. But again, give yourself 3-4 years before you get to that point. Don't listen to your parents who say, get a master's degree, become a doctor, become an engineer. You got to listen to yourself. And in fact, the recent statistic on unemployment done by the World Bank shows that it takes a Kosovar an average of 10 years to find their job of desire. And it's really telling statistics, because people are getting university degrees and then law and economics and whatever, and they end up working as waiters and then it takes them 10 years to find that job. Keep in mind all those things. I tried to rush because there's 3 more speakers here. I will welcome any questions afterward. Thank you.
Mr. Diip, thank you again. While I was having coffee with our honored guest professor Cedillo here, it seemed very interesting how he saw and is seeing that the future generations will take over Kosovo and its development. He has a lot of hopes in our generations and in forthcoming generations. At least that was my impression in cafeteria, which I was glad to hear it. So for further, we'll leave now, Professor. Continue.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege actually to be invited here and to share with you a little bit of basically our stories. The way I teach is basically I try to tell stories because I have found that students tend to remember better principles if you connect them to a story. And if it's a funny story, if it's an interesting story, it remains in their memory even longer. So I'll start today with a story about myself being 29 years old, working at a top Philadelphia law firm, and having come off that day of a major case that we had won as a firm, in which I had worked for almost 4 to 5 months, almost 5 months basically. Many sleepless nights, many long days, and we had won it. We saved our client about $300 million. And we had this big party for the client at the office, and it was over, so I'm finally getting in the elevator to go home and finally get a good night's sleep, because law firms in the US tend to kind of kill you. And they said, you know what, tomorrow you can come in late at 9 o'clock. So our offices were in the 28th floor, and I press lobby, and the time it takes from the 28th floor to the lobby, I'm starting to think, I'm like, you know what, I'm 29, I have my own house, I have a brand new car, I'm working a really awesome job, paid real well, and I'm not happy. What's wrong? I said, you know what, I don't know what's wrong, but I know where I'm going to look for that happiness. So in about 3 to 4 seconds, whatever it took to get down from 28th floor to the lobby, I decided that I'm going to move back to Kosovo. This is 14 years after I had gotten there. Basically moving back to where I come from. And I get home, I put my car up for sale on Craigslist. I'm sure some of you have visited that. And I locate a real estate agent. I call her up, leave a message to call me tomorrow so I can put up my house for sale. Within a month and a half, I had liquidated everything I had. I bought a ticket and I was in Kosovo. No job, no prospects, nothing. I left basically the top of the world to come back to what some might call the bottom of the world. And the reason why I tell you this is because as I was coming down the elevator, I remember the words of this person that had told me, don't ever do anything that you don't like doing. And that actually stands true. If you want to be successful at whatever profession you have, you got to love it. You got to enjoy it. And I saw that my job in the US was awesome. I really loved what I was doing, but it just wasn't fulfilling. And I was looking for something more. For some people, that's okay. For me, it wasn't. So I decided, I said, you know, I'm going to come back. And what I get to do here that I don't get, that I didn't get to do in the US is basically walk into a room, pick the biggest bully, and punch him right in the mouth and knock him down. Why am I saying this? Because you get to do awesome things, things that really make a difference. Granted, they don't make a difference for 300 million people like in the US, but they make a difference for the 2 million that live here. Recently we won a case in the Constitutional Court which, for the first time, anyone has held the state responsible for the violation of right to life. Nobody's done that before. And actually don't even know how to react to it because nobody's challenged the state yet. And we got to do that. Had I stayed in the US, I would never gotten a chance to do that because most of the fights in the US have already happened, probably 100 years ago or 50 years ago or 200 years ago maybe. So the excitement of being here is related to the new things that you'll get to do. I'm not saying don't leave Kosovo, definitely leave. Experience as many things as you can. Advance yourself as much as you can, but don't forget that you will have plenty of opportunities here to make a difference. Will you ever get the salary that you will get in Germany or France or Washington? Definitely not. Trust me, you won't, regardless how hard you work. But what you will get is that overall fulfillment. Let me get to the my basically history in the U.S. And again, I'll start with paraphrasing a statement that's in Ellis Island. For many of you as many of you may know, is the place where all the basically immigrants landed back in the day in the U.S. and would get registered, and then they would be shipped out to the rest of the country. And there's a statement by one immigrant that said, "I came to the U.S. because they told me that the roads are paved with gold. When I came here, I realized that the roads weren't paved with gold. In fact, most of the roads were not even paved at all. And what's worse, they expected me to pave them." Life abroad is not necessarily easy. You're basically taken out of your environment and you go in a new place. You experience new things. It's not easy, but it's awesome. It makes you grow. Sometimes my problem with students is that they're too book focused. They're too, their minds are basically just one-dimensional. Living abroad, experiencing new things teaches you more than books can, just dry learning. The fact that I lived over there for almost half my life, spent quite a bit of time experiencing new things, getting some good grades, most good grades, but even here and there slipping up because I stayed out too late, or I partied too hard, or I just worked too much, or I lost focus. That's a lesson that I learned, and I didn't repeat that again. But it makes you grow as a person, or having to work 3 jobs just so you can put yourself through school. What's the difference between back and then? And I'll do the same thing that I kind of rolled my eyes when my parents used to tell me this. And I'll tell you that, which is, yeah, it's a bit easier for you guys. It was much, much more difficult for us back in the day when we were young. The reason why it's easier for you is because there are more opportunities. But at the same time, I think it's also more difficult. I speak about people from Kosovo. Why? It's easier because now everybody knows Kosovo. Everybody invests in Kosovo. Everybody provides scholarships for Kosovars wanting to study abroad. It's more difficult because back in the day, only a select few had access to these opportunities from Kosovo. It was the kids of a few families. People from Prizren, from Ferizaj, from Gjilan didn't really have access. Forget people from villages. Today, there's more competition for these, even though the number of scholarships and the opportunities is greater, so is the number of people applying and competing for those positions. So you do have more, but at the same time, you have to be more competitive in order to achieve success. So, what can I tell you about your future? You said it right. I think I'm happy that I'm among a few people here that have basically, I don't want to call us success stories, because I think, I'd like to think that our greatest successes are still ahead of us, as opposed to being at the top of our game, and then that means you're just basically going down from here on. So, but I think we're part of a lost generation. We're the people caught in between. We're neither the ones that have the sufficient clout to kind of take the positions and be in decision-making places, but at the same time, we're also not the young generation. We're in between. So I think truly the future of this place, although it depends a bit on us, I think it depends more on you and what you do with yourselves. Taking proactive steps like organizing this event, or even applying to 10 scholarships is something that you need to do and you have to do. When I tell people that I applied, I send out 1,000 applications for a job after having graduated law school in the US, which was about €5 each application because you had to mail it out. They say, really? So would you get like 900 calls for interviews? No, I said I got about 7 out of 1,000. She said, really? 7 out of 7? That's 7 out of 1,000. I said, yep. And of those, I only got 2 offers. So did I have offers? Yes. But nobody comes and gives you an offer at home. You have to chase after it. You have to chase after success. But I think I get back to the initial thing that I said. In order to be successful, you really have to love what you do. If you mind waking up in the morning and going to your job, you're probably doing the wrong job. Thank you very much. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Professor. I would apologize to our guest speakers here today because while I was reading their biographies, I skipped most of the important parts. For the next speaker, who is Mr. Chandram, I didn't mention a lot of awards and prizes that actually he learned during his professional career. I would apologize for that once again, but I think that everybody here knows and will realize that it's just a procedure, and for further information I would please pass the microphone to Mr. Chandram.
So I'm expected to read out my CV now, right? I'm just kidding. So I'm really happy to be here with you. It's my first time visiting AUK in a non-visitor, simple visitor capacity. I'm especially delighted to be part of this panel, and I feel very privileged to be part of this panel. So I was born on June 4th, 1984 at 4 a.m. I'm the 4th child. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's true. I'm not the 4th child. And since then, I decided to do mathematics. And then at some point, I started going to elementary school and then university. And I'll skip the rest. Exactly. But actually, I just like her, I also, when I teach, I try to tell stories. And as you can tell, because we teach math, most of the stories are made up. I had just graduated from the University of Pristina with a diploma in mathematics, and I went to University of Cambridge, UK, for a master's degree. And the thing that struck me there was that as a student, I was not allowed to walk on half of the grass. So I was allowed to walk on only a particular part of the field that was for the commoner, whereas the professors were allowed to walk all over the place. So of course I had to get used to that. But when I went to the University of Chicago the next year, the first thing that I noticed was that actually there were people playing frisbee on grass. So that was the shocking bit. Now you can imagine. I mean, I'm talking about grass here, and not the kind you smoke, but the kind you walk on. But this is, I mean, this is when you go abroad, everything sort of can shock you, and then when you go to fine universities, obviously the discrepancy between the University of Pristina, unfortunately, and those universities is really, really enormous. And that's why you have to work hard in order to achieve any success. And I know AUK students like to work hard, and I think that in order to achieve anything meaningful, you really, really have to work hard and focus. So for those of you that know about the University of Chicago, it's a place that is famous for one of the mantras. It's where fun comes to die. So I went there. It's true. Another one is where hell freezes over because it's really cold there during the winter. So I spent 5 years there, and then I returned to Europe to Bonn, Cambridge again, Paris, and then I returned to Kosovo on September 1st, 2010. And I'd like to address some of the cliches about foreign or Kosovar students who are abroad or who go and study abroad. We tend to call them our representatives. We ask them to represent us well. Actually, I was tired of that because I think Kosovo is not lacking representatives abroad. Kosovo is lacking people who work hard to change reality here on the ground. So whoever tells you be a good representative, you should tell them I want to change Kosovo so that I don't have to have this huge burden on myself for just coming from Kosovo. And then there's another thing that usually they tell you when you're young, and unfortunately I'm still young. They tell you, I'm 28, so. No, they tell you, you know what, you should mind your own business. You know, you should just work hard, be successful in your own field, and then there's somebody else who can take care of let's say, policy issues or other things. Actually, this reminds me of the famous author Salman Rushdie, who was asked recently by an Albanian journalist. He was asked, "Well, you're a famous writer, and you've condemned the violence in Syria, so you're also interested in that, Mr. Rushdie." And then he says, "Well, the fact that I'm a writer does not take away my responsibility for being a citizen." And that's my motto. Whatever you do, and wherever you are, you should try to be successful in your own field, but it's your responsibility above all to be a citizen. And especially if you're a citizen of the newest country in Europe, but not in the world anymore because it's South Sudan. So, of course, being a mathematician, I can't escape from giving you this advice. It's my only one. I don't usually give good advice. When you go to study abroad, you have to pass all these standardized tests, so you really have to know some mathematics. And if you think you've escaped from us, think again. So I'd like to encourage you to really invest a little bit in mathematics, because you can invest it in it a little bit, and then it'll pay off. And nowadays, quantitative skills are unavoidable. And then, of course, I don't want to reiterate all the things that the other speakers have said so far. One of the nice things about being abroad is that you learn how your name can be misspelled in various ways, right? For example, my name is Chandra, so it doesn't have a U after Q, but inevitably it becomes Quendrim or Chanda or whatever. So try to enjoy that and try to work hard, and you can decide. And this is another thing. I don't like telling people where to live. It's your right to decide where you want to live. If you want to go and move abroad permanently, it's your right. If you want to come back, you know, that's fine too. I chose to come back because I thought that as one of the people that had gone through the difficulties of the 90s, I thought that our country deserved better. We can change it, and I want to be part of that change. So you are also very welcome to be part of that change. But wherever you are, you can contribute to the Kosovar society. And I think wherever you are, you should not cease to remember your responsibility of being a citizen above all. And I'm definitely very happy to respond to any questions you have. But I think this is it for me for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chandra. For all of you who are interested in journalism, even though that I didn't mention it, too, Professor Gutina is a person who will introduce to more challenges on journalism and, of course, in political sciences. So.
Actually, I used to be a reporter, probably one of the first reporters of an independent journalism in Kosovo. And I was fortunate, in a very unfortunate situation, because I was 18 when the war broke out in Kosovo. So that was like the highlight of my life in a lot of ways, because I got to cover our own war. But at the same time, it was probably the biggest challenge that defines and shapes who I am today. My story is slightly different from the story of the other panelists. I went to school, I went to pursue my undergraduate studies at the age of 28. And I went to one of the probably most traditional universities in the United States, Yale University. It was the best experience that I've ever had in my life. It was challenging because I came from a makeshift school as well. I went to Jagadoda High School. We did go to an actual building and we did have actual classrooms, but we had no books. You know, our professors gave us dictations of what was supposed to be learned that day. I joke with people who I'm teaching this semester. I ask them all the time, what age were you then? 10? Were you even 10? Basically, because I don't want to burden the new generation with the hardship that we went through, because I think we have taken a lot of it in, and as Korab and Shindin and Benera mentioned, we feel like we owe it to Kosovo to come back. Like, that's the motivation. We feel like we owe it to Kosovo to come back and make a difference here. But I agree with Shindrim, especially to say that you've got to strive for excellence. You have to pursue your own dreams. And if, I read this quote actually preparing one of the speeches for the president of Kosovo, who I have the honor to work for now as a foreign policy and security advisor, that, this quote, this amazing quote from Sirleaf, the president of Liberia, who said, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And this is pretty much me, if I can sum it up, in the year of 2007, as I was covering the negotiations between Kosovo and Serbia in Vienna. And I sat there, these were very tense negotiations. A lot was going on. Our future was being decided, whether we were going to see the fulfillment of this dream that I heard our parents were very graciously leaving it to us. To complete, whether we were going to see it come true, and whether this burden, but at the same time this achievement, will set us free, will actually let us move to the next stage of building our country. And as I was sitting there covering these politicians that were going in and out, deciding, details which now come to shape our lives, I thought to myself, is this really what the contribution that I can make in my country? For me, it was enough to do it in '98 and '99 when the stakes were higher, when it was really important to establish a public sphere where you could actually have independent journalism and try to show what was going on, but that was also a mission, right? To show what was going on in your country. To become the voice of people who could not necessarily say things. So for me, it was that moment when I said, well, I actually feel like for the first time in my life, I'm not contributing enough to the debate. I'm not an active participant. I've kind of become pretty passive because I go and take one statement from then President of Serbia, Tadic, and then I move on to President Sejdiu, I believe at the time, who would give a statement, or an ex-politician in Kosovo. And it just didn't feel any satisfying anymore. Of course, I forgot to mention that at this time, I had moved from working for a local newspaper, Coaditore, to working for an international news agency, the Associated Press, a very prestigious American-based news agency. So this, to me, was like, it wasn't enough. The contribution that I was giving back to Kosovo was not enough. So I thought, okay, so what am I going to do? I was lucky to have enough people in my life to support me, to do what I wanted to do next, which was to pursue a good education. And I applied, with discouragement and with this fear at night, whether I was going to achieve the big dream and whether my dream scared me. I decided to apply to Yale University. It was a difficult decision to make because obviously any rejection, and you will know this from when you go through it, every rejection is hard to swallow, right? And if you're rejected from one of the best schools, does that mean that you're not going to be able to get into a good school? Does that mean that you're not good enough? And but I did. I applied, and I 6 months after, I got an email from Yale. The bulldog is their mascota, sort of, and I saw it jumping at my computer screen and announcing that I had been accepted to Yale. But it was a strange experience, right? You had this world of experience that you had gained in Kosovo. You had sort of dealt with matters of life and death. And now you were going to go to a school, sit with 18-year-olds who had not left their country ever, right? Or who had no idea where Kosovo was. But as Venera mentioned, and this really struck sort of a chord with me, you have to be open to different cultures. That's the beauty of studying abroad, because you become more tolerant. You see that people, you become more patient, because here we're rushing and constantly thinking that everybody needs to know our reality, everyone needs to know our hardship. There, they don't really know it, and you've got to be patient to explain it and work with people to kind of understand where they're coming from and where you're coming from. And this was pretty much what I did for 4 years at Yale, where I finished my bachelor and master's at the same time on political science. What I learned in the process was that the experience in Kosovo that I had gone through, and each of you, I try to convey this to my students in comparative politics and now in religion and international relations, that the experience that you have gained here in these years of transitions, and boy, were they hard, and they continue to be very hard. I know it because I wake up every day with the lack of water, lack of electricity, a lack of parks and nice places where to take my 8-month daughter for a walk or for a stroll, actually in her stroller. So you struggle with these problems of transitions. We all strive for something better. But at the same time, this was such a unique experience, and we're so privileged to have sort of lived it, that you can make sense of it. And this is the beauty of studying abroad, because you take time for yourself to, I don't know, sum it up and contribute to that large literature out there that tries to track down the human condition, the human nature. What international intervention does, what aid does to countries like ours. You have seen it. In one of my comparative classes, I asked my students to name all the international organizations that have worked in Kosovo. And they were able to probably turn we turned to the board, and they were able to name about 50 organizations, I believe. Your peers around the world do not, especially for those wanting to study international relations, do not know them. They may know about UN, but that's it. So you have a comparative advantage. You have a very unique story to tell. And make it your own story, because it was your own story. Kosovo is an inspirational story, and I think the inspiration sort of lives within all of us. So I kind of told you about the idea why I decided to come back. I had also personal motives to come back to Kosovo. I had my fiancé who was waiting for me very patiently for 4 years here, kind of like, okay, you're pursuing a degree in political science, but how about a degree in marriage? Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But I used my time there to really reflect back on what I had lived through in Kosovo, and that was my experience. It doesn't have to be yours. You have other things to show for. And it was difficult to make that decision to come back in a lot of ways, professionally especially. But I thought about it, I looked at the offers that I would have in the United States as someone who graduated from university at the age of 32, actually becoming 33. I thought it was, the jobs that would be on offer would be in consulting. Did I want to do that, or did I want to come back to Kosovo? The answer became very obvious to me. I wanted to come back to Kosovo. I wanted to make an impact here. And I know that institutions in Kosovo, public service in general, has a very low sort of, there's very low, how should I say, belief in it, like there's little trust on institutions. I'm inside and I'm aware of it every day, but there's something patriotic about giving back to your country, and there's something patriotic about being part of the institutions, being an active participant, even in the public sphere or the private sphere, however you feel it. I saw half of the class, kind of more than half, saying that they want to work in the private sector, and that's fine, you're going to make a contribution. MDA makes a huge contribution to Kosovo's development. But so it's about where you can sort of fulfill your role as a citizen, and it's important that you do, because all of us have no alternative. Kosovo is my homeland, and I have nowhere else to go. So this is it. I'm open to questions.
Thank you again. As I told you before, now is the time that was reserved for questions and replies. So,
hi, I'm Gutina. I'm a sophomore here at AUK. I know some of you teach here, but I would want to ask the others, have you ever thought about teaching at AUK?
I actually have a special relationship with AUK. I'm also AUK's lawyer, so I'm here often, but as a shield, protecting AUK. And I also have had several visits as a guest teacher, but unfortunately, other than the fact that I teach at University of Pristina, I also manage a law firm. We have there's a total of 8 of us that work there, so my time is there's only 24 hours, and I try to, I don't know, maybe you can help me out with your mathematics to add some hours to the day, but I like to only take bites as much as I can chew, and at this point, this is enough plenty what I have in plate, but I'm always happy to come here and share with you whatever I can.
This is the usual joke about mathematicians, that they can count and well, and they can add and multiply. But with lawyers, it's, you know, I would say, do you speak Latin? No, I teach at the University of Pristina. That's the university I teach. I teach there not because I studied there, but because that's the only math department they have. I'd be happy to cooperate with AUK, but they just have to make me an offer I can't refuse. That's it.
Can I add something? I just wanted to say that there was a moment when I was in the United States kind of plotting my return to Kosovo, and I believe I was watching the electoral campaign, and I saw Chandran being grilled by this reporter at one of the local televisions, and she says to him, so how come a mathematician is becoming a politician? And Chandran's like, okay, you know, kind of waiting suspiciously what the next question will be, and she says, in math, 1 + 1 means 2. In politics, 1 + 1 is 13 sometimes. That was the moment when I thought that I needed to go back to journalism again.
And actually, by the way, I get that question a lot, but it's more that's more a reflection on the part of the person who's asking the question, on their ability to do mathematics, than on, you know, a real statement about politics. And actually, you get that a lot if you and I see, for example, Professor Bislimi, who's in the audience here. And he's also involved politically, and you get that a lot in Kosovo. If you have your own mind, your own vision, and if you don't want to just serve to a particular person or an unjust cause, then they will find any reason to dissuade you from being involved in politics. The truth is that, you know, currently in Kosovo, it's not that politicians have, you know, a track record of integrity. It's the opposite. So anyone who's got a track record of integrity should be involved in politics. Anyone. And then us, the citizens, we can make our choices. Because at the moment, it's not that we have a bouquet of choices and we just don't know who to choose. It's actually quite the opposite. So this is why I actually mentioned earlier that it's important to be successful in your own field, but just remember at the end of the day that you can be, you have the responsibility to be a citizen. And then, you know, Merkel is someone who's studied chemistry, if I'm not mistaken. You know, many politicians have a background that is not political science, and actually political science is not really to make you a politician. So these are misconceptions in Kosovo that we have to do away with. But I really always like the question about 1 plus 1 because it's a reflection on how much mathematics they know.
I guess I'm the one left to answer that one. In general, I like not teaching, training, because I've been training mid-level, high-level managers in Kosovo for the last 12 years. I like the idea of teaching youngsters. I really see a lot of hope in young people, and I fully agree with Gaurav that we are sort of the in-between generation now. Again, sometimes it's the surroundings. The more of you are equipped with skills and are willing to come and work with us, more time I will have to come and teach here. So it goes like that. Basically, it's in the job. The demand right now is enormous in the consulting field in Kosovo, as you can imagine. But for a brief time, a part-time class, I would be willing to. Why not? It would be a pleasure. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Diip. I actually studied in the US, just graduated about a year ago. Came back, and for me it's actually nice to hear all of you talk, but for me it's been a great struggle coming back. Why? There's a lot of nepotism. I feel like if you don't know people, it's nearly impossible to get the job. The job that I actually got, I actually had to pretend to be an American, that I don't speak English, to contact the chief of mission, and because there's no way possible to get through the Albanians. I mean, it's nice hearing that you guys have been really successful. However, I've had a lot of friends that have moved back, that lived abroad, and that have great degrees and worked hard, and that came back and failed. So, I mean, is it really possible to make it in Kosovo if you haven't been here for a long time? I mean, I lived in the US for 14.5 years, got involved the whole time there, and to me, coming back, not knowing people, it's been nearly impossible to achieve.
What level of education and what do you do now?
I'm 23 years old. I have a degree in human rights and structural violence, individualized degree program, anthropology, political science, economics, women's studies, philosophy, everything. I mean, traveled the world in a way, worked in Africa for a while, and then came here, and it seems almost impossible. I mean, I'm happy with the job I have now. However, I feel like being Albanian American, it's harder to make it here than to just come here and get a degree from AUK or University of Pristina. So, I mean, thank you for the encouragement and everything. I just like my reality, and the reality for a lot of my friends has been hard moving back.
I was actually trying. We are looking for people at NBA as well, but it's a bit off. I always interview people. I mean, they don't know that I interview them. But,
I mean, I've had the places where, like, I applied for a job actually a few years ago.
I think,
yeah. The guy, like, wouldn't even let me meet the actual executive director, and he made me meet him outside. And I give him my resume. He goes, "Well, you're kind of cute," and I actually have to get the resume, rip it up, and throw it at his face. I mean, that's like.
Or you could have just said thank you.
I'm kidding. I mean, it's been like impossible.
Okay. Well, don't get discouraged. I see a trend. I can always speak in terms of trends because you always have these types of, and I actually have a lot of Kosovo American Education Fund alumni who have returned to Kosovo and, you know, a master's degree from a top-notch university, and then they struggle for 7 months to get a job because of the reasons you stated. This is it. This is the situation. It's unfortunate. I can say that, of course, the private sector is a bit more easier, especially stronger companies. Those that have worked maybe only in trade for many years, but now are looking to move into production or get more sophisticated in what they do. A lot of them are actually coming to us or either through various channels, are looking for people who are outside, not even related to the family, because most of them are, you know, family owned. So there's a waking up, if you will, of the private sector.
Saying forget this, I'm going back to my cushy job in Philadelphia, and my nice house, which I can afford to buy, and my nice car, and so I can take my kids to nice parks and places, so I don't have to struggle like I am here. So it doesn't necessarily get easier, but the fact of the matter is that you have to find your own kind of world, even here. It's even more difficult for people like yourself and like myself, who have basically grown up somewhere else. So we really are not culturally, we're not Kosovars. We're Americans, or not even Americans, we're like the part of America that basically where we lived. You know, toward the end of my stay in the US, people would be asking, what's that accent, what's that accent? You know, and I start, you know, getting ready to tell them about the Kosovo story. That's a Jersey accent. You know, and it's like, yeah, I'm from South Jersey, that's right. But the point is that I found my own way. My wife and I are both, I should say Kosovar Americans or Albanian Americans. And actually I share something with you because both of my children were born in New Haven at Yale Hospital, so where she studied. But you know what, the fact that my wife and I have the same struggles here gives me kind of a place where I can retreat and talk to someone about our problems that we face and that we fully understand each other. So I kind of found my own world within Kosovo. And everyone has to kind of find what makes them happy if they want to continue here. The other side of it is I know a lot of our colleagues or countrymen that come, and women that come from a foreign country where they study for a year or two or more, they come back and they think that they're at the top of the world. You're not. You have to pay your dues. They're not going to make you a minister right away because you probably haven't stolen enough votes being in Germany or France or the US. They're not going to make you a director. You're going to end up starting somewhere low, despite the fact maybe you should be higher up, but you still have to go through the ladder. I kind of found my own way, but everybody has to do that, and unfortunately a lot of people are being discouraged and leaving right away after 6 months of struggling. They're saying, you know what, life's just too hard here, I want to go back to where it's easy.
To me, what's discouraging, like, it's not even the pay or any of that. To me, what's discouraging is where I work, majority of the local people don't even have degrees. And they work there for 13 years, they can't hire anything. And when I even offer the help in a way, like, they just oppose it, you know? And that's what's discouraging. Like, everybody tells you you have no chance, but the majority of the people who are in those positions don't even have a degree or don't even know how to do the job right. So, I don't know.
Can I just add something? I worked as a reporter for 10 years without a degree.
No, it's not about
no, let me just finish it. It's not to say that, you know, experience doesn't count for anything. These people have worked on those jobs for 13 years, and of course if they had the opportunity to pursue their education, they probably would. I think we all have to go a long way to create a spirit of cooperation in our workplaces, in our companies. Probably Diip will know this better, what the workplace is like in Kosovo. But obviously you have a lot of competition. Of course you're going to start from the start. As Korav was saying, you cannot become, you know, a top level employee of the government official right from, you know, out of college. So, and it's even better for you because you will grow into that role gradually. You will grow into responsibilities. You will do a better job if you start from the beginning, if you start from scratch. So don't get discouraged. Try, you know, try. You would have to try in the United States as well, everywhere. So it's not much different here. Just that the pool of jobs here is much smaller, and it's becoming more competitive, and people are scared for their jobs. So this is a reflection of that, I think.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
Was just okay, Professor.
We're looking for some people to teach some law classes.
Is that an offer?
Sounds like.
For an interview, anyway.
Okay, so quick question. You mentioned the competition many times, that actually not the opportunities. I mean that we have now more opportunities. I would agree on that because we have the information and it's easier to find the right school and the plan and everything. But then making a comparison between your time and our time, let's say, then not many of you wanted to go abroad or knew about those opportunities. And Kosovo was, I don't know about your time, but in the beginning, just after the war, was in the center of debates, and many schools wanted to have students from Kosovo going there because of the diversity and their programs, special programs in developing countries. But now, many of us, how many of us want to go abroad and study for a master's degree? Just here. I know many others who. Really?
I'm just kidding.
I thought you wanted to stay here. And the competition is quite high, I believe. And Kosovo, it's not really in the center of debate. It's okay. They want a student from Kosovo, but not many of them from Kosovo in their universities. So what about that? Now, in this perspective, the competition that now we have and you had.
I guess we all kind of went through this issue of your opportunities and our actually lack of opportunities back then. Let's say if you were coming from a rural area or like from the provinces, like some of the panelists mentioned, you just forget about applying for a scholarship or going somewhere abroad. So we had very few opportunities, and you really had to work hard and find the places for you to go. So yeah, it was the very end of war, but we didn't have so many scholarships and programs. So still, it was more difficult for us. And it was also, the post-war period. It was also the trade-off whether you want to work, maybe contributing to your family, reconstructing the country, or you want to go study abroad, which is something you don't have it nowadays. You only have to think about your own future, finding the best place for you, and you can just, let's say, kind of leapfrog all these problems and issues we've had, and you can benefit from, let's say, the situation you have nowadays. And yes, there are so many of you that want to go abroad, and I'm happy for you. But you have the opportunities, as I mentioned, you know the languages, there are so many scholarships and programs, so there is more competition, but there are more opportunities and offers for you, which we did not have back then.
Actually, I just want to add that. One thing that was, for me, very different was, because I studied mathematics, there are very few local scholarships available for exact sciences. This was the mentality of the post-war development that you need to invest in history, social sciences, to make people happy and learn more about how much they are alike and how little they're different from each other. But we don't actually need to count those people and anything that has to do with numbers. So it's funny. I don't think I've ever mentioned this publicly, but I was turned down for a scholarship here by one of the organizations that sort of remain nameless. They said, because you will be given a better scholarship. So they had no idea that I actually did get a scholarship from the University of Cambridge. But it wasn't very pleasant, because when I was at the university, I didn't get a scholarship either here at the University of Pristina. Luckily, I did get a university scholarship, both at Cambridge and Chicago. So in a sense, I don't have this weight that some students have to contribute because your studies have been enabled by a scholarship that was specifically for Kosovar students. And I'm really happy for that. I just do things that I care about it and the way I feel, and I don't have that weight. But I also want to use this opportunity to add that I think it's very important that students that get scholarships that are for Kosovo or Kosovar students, they have to realize that they have to give something back. There are some such students who go abroad and then they think, oh, but now we're used to this student kind of lifestyle, we can't just go back to Kosovo. Sorry, you got the scholarship because you were from Kosovo, maybe you were the best in Kosovo, but you got it because of that, and you have to go back. And there are some cases like that. And then finally, of course, in the spirit of, when we were young, something else was going on. Of course it was different. There were fewer scholarships available, maybe, but actually I think right now it's better to be a student because, first of all, you can attend, for example, the American University of Kosovo, where you can learn English. I had to learn English on my own. You can imagine the kind of little English you learn when you're at elementary school or University of Pristina. Although I come from the University of Pristina, we're a fine university, top-notch quality. but so you have this opportunity, which immediately puts you in the world market. And some people believe in free trade. I do so as well. And you have to compete, exactly. So you just have to learn and work hard, including mathematics.
Can I just add something to Chetrin's point? So yeah, actually back then when we used to apply for scholarships, so we didn't have these kind of programs. So when you're competing with your peers from Kosovo. When I competed in both the scholarship programs, I was competing with people abroad. Let's say I was the only one in both the programs, in master's and PhD programs, and I was the only one from Kosovo. That being said, now, and I guess we know what kind of education from the University of Pristina we came from, and the English problems and math problems we had, so that was actually very fierce competition to face with. Whereas here, as Chandra was mentioning, you have the English capabilities. It's a very well, let's say, kind of education system, and you're competing with each other, which again, it's much easier for you. So do not get discouraged by that.
I also want to say that Gopher also try to apply directly to university without sort of searching for a scholarship here. Try to apply directly to universities. For example, I applied to Yale, and Yale has a huge endowment. I think their endowment is like $20 billion. They give a lot of scholarship for the students. It comes as need-based sort of, and of course, who has $250,000 to spare for an education at Yale. But basically, if you get it in, they don't look if you can pay or not. They'll provide the funds to you. So they'll give you a scholarship, a need-based scholarship to finish your studies. So don't look at only for the scholarships available in Kosovo or the region. Apply directly to schools, and sometimes they also have money to fund your studies. And I also want to sort of compliment Chandrim's and Venera's point about sort of how prepared you go to study abroad now. I had to spend sometimes, in the first year, about 16 to 18 hours at the library every day. Quantitative skills, I had zero. I mean, I basically knew no math, and I had to take courses here before I went to take my SATs at the age of 28, just 10 years of pause from my sort of math. And you need those skills. They will help you in tests. You will excel in tests if you test, especially the GMAT for business school and stuff. So work on your math, because I know that's a weak point in our system, education system.
For those of you wanting to study in the U.S., try to expand your range of applications. Don't all go for Harvard and Yale. We all want to go there. Not all of us will end up there. Usually you have a better chance of getting in and getting a scholarship, because what happens is the U.S. students are mobile within their country, but they're very localists. They are not very mobile when it comes to going beyond the United States, studying abroad. So some of them do, but for the most part they don't. So what universities do in order to expose them to an international flavor, all of them have certain quotas that they set for themselves of international students. So everybody around the world knows about Harvard and Yale, and they all go and apply there. But then there's universities that cannot fulfill their quota because nobody from the international community is applying there. So you have a better chance of getting into like rural schools, really good schools, but they're not in Manhattan, or they're not in Center City, Philadelphia, or Boston. They're somewhere out in outskirts in the middle of nowhere, but they're an excellent school with excellent programs and excellent reputation. So as you kind of plan your strategy to apply to different schools, make sure you apply to Yale, but make sure you apply to something a little bit less than Yale. Yale would say apply. Make sure you apply to Harvard too, just as a second choice. But make sure you apply to different level schools so you have a greater chance of being accepted and even scoring maybe a full ride, which is not a little bit of money.
Professor, please.
I was on the admission committee for RIT when I was at RIT. We regularly had money to give away, and we regularly had a hard time figuring out who to give it to, mostly because the internationals that we were interviewing had English language skills that were so bad that both their recommenders and their letters that they wrote to us were so bad that we couldn't read them, let alone decide to admit them. So you guys have a huge advantage of that. But again, there's one Harvard, one Yale, one Georgetown. You know, you guys really need to think about RIT. I don't think anybody from AUK has ever applied to the policy program at RIT for the graduate program, and they have money. Did you? I'm just, you know, I'm not aware.
We want to diversify our CV and educational background.
Pardon me?
We want to diversify our educational background.
Yeah, so if you want to diversify, look at Michigan, look at the University of Georgia, look at schools in Texas. These are huge schools with awesome reputations, and they don't come trippingly to the tongue. You know, Michigan, Chicago, although Chicago, if you're going to be a math or economist, is one of the best places in the world, but I mean, really do a little research on what you're interested in and find a school that's not on the top of everybody's list. Because if you apply to Harvard, you know, you got 20, 30, 100 people to compete with. You apply to the University of Georgia, which by the way is the #3 public policy program in the world, after Syracuse and then Harvard Kennedy School. So, anybody applied to Georgia ever? #3 in the world. And that's what's going on. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because, you know, really do a little homework and think about, you know, the schools that people here haven't heard of. Anyway.
Can I just briefly add something here? I fully agree with what was said on this topic. In fact, what these better schools, let's call them the top-notch Ivy schools, look for are things that you have done from freshman year. I think don't do the usual Kosovo thing where when summer comes after you graduate from your undergraduate, then you think what university you go to, or just the year before. Start thinking of what characteristics these schools look for, like activities after school, volunteering activities. And start doing them right now, even in your freshman. Think that it's, don't do it because you want to get into an Ivy school. Do it because it's a good thing to do, but it will repay, because later on, these schools really look at these things, and it's not just about grades, it's not just about the standardized tests at the end of the day. Yeah, they do have a cutoff, but you also need to show that you were involved in many other things and good things for the community where you live.
Yeah, I feel I'm here at home with my students. Actually, our students learn, are very, very active in so many, let's say, extracurricular activities. We have so many clubs, and we are actually very proud of. There's something like AUK Charity Club, which even won a Fides Prize for philanthropic activities in Kosovo. We have Economist Club, Management Club, Music Club, Poetry Club. So actually, our students are really being very active, and I think beyond grades, this is going to play a very important role in also building their personalities when they pursue future graduate studies.
My question is in terms of adopting after getting back to Kosovo. All of you mentioned that it's hard to find a job when you come back. Do you have any keynotes or any suggestions of what we should do after we get back from finishing up 2 years of masters or a year of masters, being away from the labor market, in a place which is in transition, so things change day by day, and when you talk about a time of 2 years, it's quite a long time. So by default, actually, you start 1-0 behind the others who wouldn't go so. Besides that, you have a better education. Do you have any keynotes of what we should do after coming back?
Korab mentioned it, you just have to love what you do. If you really love what you're doing, having Fiola Shuka as a student and all of you in my class, then that's the reward I mentioned. So if you really love what you're doing, teaching students and seeing them how they're doing and following their career paths in the future, then it's what keeps you alive and what keeps you walking with all the difficulties. So just love what you're doing, and that's it.
Well, I mean, there will be people who will not be able to find their so-called career path, the desired career that early on. Even after you have worked for 3-4 years after undergraduate, you went to a master's or graduate school, that also was not sufficient for you to know exactly what you want to do with your career. I think once you come back, again, with some exceptions, there's always exceptions. So people have a hard time finding the right jobs. We are in a relatively small market in Kosovo, and you can find, just as it is difficult to find good jobs because of this nepotism, which we all know exists, I think there's also the other side. Because of this unskilled, huge labor market that currently exists, I believe more and more there will be opportunities for you who get the skills and the knowledge, who get the knowledge and have some skills to showcase yourself and get into the jobs that you desire. I think there's not one single list of, we do recruitment, we do headhunting as NDA, and we facilitate experts, even international experts, into capacity development projects in Kosovo for the last 10 years. We deal with all types of people, even recently a production optimization English expert of 40 years of experience. The guy just enters a factory and he can tell you right away, start listing things that you're doing wrong and save you 4% in your production costs, which he did actually for several companies last year. There's a lot of opportunities in Kosovo because there are so many challenges, so many needs, such an undeveloped private sector, such an undeveloped pool of human skills in the public sector. I think all of you, it's pretty, the future is relatively bright for all of you. You should not worry about having a hard time finding a job. The critical mass that really value good skills and performance-based management is increasing. I don't see it as decreasing, or I don't see it as standing still. I think more and more people are seeing the good things that come out of performance-based, things that you can measure, of results. And that's where you will come in.
And don't underestimate the role of networks. So talk to a lot of people in the process of looking for a job. Talk to a lot of them, show them your interest. Don't be shy about telling them what you have done, because that's also very helpful in finding the next job or finding the the next scholarship or the next thing you want to do.
One thing that I'd like to add to that is just the fact that the longer you stay abroad, the more difficult the transition is going to be. And in fact, the transition back is more difficult than the transition forward, which is for most of us, that was the case. For instance, we got used to going from going to school to Vranjes, to go into a school where you couldn't find your classes. There's so many classes, so many lockers, so many gyms, so many everything. That's a positive transition. You get used to good things really quickly. Problem is going back now, taking a step back, and the longer you get used to that life, the more difficult it is. One thing I've done personally to kind of keep my own world I brought all my stuff in my room back with me. I loaded it up in a container and brought it back. At least I knew that, which only lasted about 4 years until I had my kids, and now it's theirs now. Nothing's mine anymore. But I kind of had a sanctuary. I had a place where it kind of reminded me, and I had that sense of stability. Kosovo is going through transition. It's unstable. It has a lot of things that are going wrong. They're talking about things moving forward, and I don't think we're going to move forward until we have this government out. I know some of you may agree, some of you may not, but we're going backwards with this, at least in the economic sense. And I think your opportunities actually, and your adjustment here, and the ability to get jobs to contribute to the betterment of the country will depend on having a government that actually recognizes your skills and recognizes you as an asset, as opposed to looking at you as a threat. I have a student who just came back from Oxford University having received a full ride to get her LLM, was actually supposed to be here today. She's working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and she's basically photocopying stuff. She should be doing a little bit more than that. I'm not saying she should be the minister or the deputy minister, but she should be doing more than photocopying papers. I have two really good students who should have been given the scholarship from the European Commission that we screwed up as a country and they stopped it. But of course, they don't get it, and who gets it the scholarship is given to daughters and sons of the politicians who are at best mediocre students. I think this goes hand in hand with seeing you as an asset and grabbing you before another country grabs you. Because if you go to the US and you study hard and you're at the top of your class, trust me, you're going to have 10 companies looking to grab you. It's going to be difficult to get you back.
I'll add my sense to this. Apart from having nephews, nepotism comes obviously from Italian. So apart from having nephews in power, you should know Luan. That's actually a very, very good idea to talk to him. But I would like to use this opportunity to mention something that was left out. So one of the participants here mentioned how difficult the transition was because the local community was a little bit hostile. Actually, there's also the other side of the spectrum, although at AUK you may be not too comfortable discussing it, being a local and being undervalued by the international community. So I think it's very important to come here and to demonstrate to everyone that you're a professional, and it is in that regard that you should be valued, not because of your passport. But at the end of the day, we're... Yeah, or where you studied, exactly. At the end of the day, you have to remember, and unfortunately, this is a cold shower, we are the poorest country in Europe with the highest unemployment, and it is not going to be easy to come back. That's why I said earlier, it is your decision, nobody should force you, you should count all your cards, but if you do decide to come back, remember that you're part of something that we're building, and we're building a brighter future, but we just don't see it yet. So I know it's slightly pessimistic, but you have to be a little bit idealistic in order to return. Unless you have a Kosovo scholarship, in which case you have to return, because that's what the condition says.
Again, I'm not trying to be overly optimistic or unrealistic, but I am involved in many projects as a company, I speak, and some of them I work individually, but there's a lot of people who have returned, who have really gotten into mid-level management positions, either in public or private sector. Yes, you still have the grouchy old businessmen who think they know everything, right? But they listen. And they listen more and more, and they allow for some decision-making to happen. Now, you also have to have this experience on your shoulders. It doesn't really, you can go into an Ivy school and all that, and you come back and you start working. You can have a capacity delivery on 10, if you measure 1 to 10, but the capacity absorption is at 2 or 3, then you have not done anything. You've communicated at this level, and the understanding capability is down to this level. This is how the projects, most of the projects who don't have a local partner, get implemented here. They just come in, tick boxes, and they leave, and there's no sustainability. You have to learn about the culture, they have to be patient about this mentality, which, again, my father is an engineer, but 1,000 opportunities can pass by his nose, and he won't grab one, because he has a salary, he has a job which he had for 40 years, and that's it. It's a different mentality. We just have to accept that. You are the ones who will change it one by one. I think there's, again, feel very enthusiastic, work hard, and work hard in a competitive type mindset. Apply, win, because it also feels more rewarding when you win something based on your effort alone, and it was not given to you. When something is given to you, ready-made, you don't appreciate it. You disrespect it, you don't take it seriously. So This is why I'm also against giving type of grants to businesses and even the businesses currently, to a large extent. Again, there's an improvement, but to a large extent they want grants, you know. They want consultancy, but they want a donor to pay for that consultancy. They don't think about the fact that that consultancy is lowering their costs or increasing their profit, you know. They just want to grab something that can be given to them, you know, ready-made. This has to change, and we and you should be able to change it a little bit. Thanks.
You can take the last question or comment.
I think this is pretty much it. We have been discussing for almost 2 hours, and the schedule is up. For me personally, it was like 20 minutes. I would like to tell our honored guests that we are grateful for having them here today, and thank you.